Professional Serving Community, talkradio.nyc.
I'm back, baby. The kid, the one and only, the nonprofit sector connector. 2 flights up from the kitchen, 3 different cups of coffee ready to roll. Listen, it's been a rough week, a long week. Last night was Halloween. Today is November 1st. Happy Diwali to all those. And I got to shout out really quick. Earlier this week, we had the New York City Imagine Awards, the 4th annual New York City Imagine Awards. I just want to congratulate the winners before we get into this week's show. The Alliant Leadership Excellence Award winner was my friend, Katrina Perot, who's executive director of Inspiring Minds New York City. The Serenian Associates Social Impact Award was the Children's Museum of Manhattan. The Claire Friedlander Family Foundation Arts and Culture Award, Young People's Chorus of New York City. The JP Morgan Chase DEIA Award was Fiverr Camp. I hung out with those people from Fiverr the other night. That is an awesome camp. Shout out to my friend Linda Beagle-Schulman, who through the Scott J. Beagle Memorial Fund sends kids up to camp. Fiverr is one of the camps. Linda was at the event the other night. The Flagstar Private Bank Fan Favorite Award was Brave House, the Brave House. I had the opportunity to sit with the 2 women from the Brave House. What an incredible organization, serving immigrant women in New York City, and just so powerful about empowerment and legislative needs and legal needs rather, and just what an important group. We go 2 more to go. The One Group Innovation Award, Teens for Food Justice, and your part-time controller Rising Star Award, Grassroots Grocery. 287 people in the room that night. Gustavino's, New York City, just beneath, around next to the 59th Street Bridge. If you've never been there, what a cool venue, what a cool night. I did wear a red sparkly tuxedo jacket because I don't really like to blend. I remember that my Cousin Vinny movie, and Marissa Tomei goes, "Yeah, you blend." I don't blend. I'm not a blender. I can make your milkshake, but I'm not a blender. All right, we're gonna get into today's show. I am the nonprofit sector connector. The show is Philanthropy and Focus. Every week on this program, we do a couple things. I help nonprofits tell their story and amplify their message. And on occasion, we can take a bit of a departure from actually having someone who is directly working for a nonprofit organization, and we'd rather have somebody who is doing incredible consulting work and education for the sector. Kimberly, Kaye, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Hi, New York. Talking to you from New Orleans, and home a lot.
Nolans.
Now,
You know who loves Nolans? My cousin Vinny. Ironically, my real cousin Vinny in real life loves New Orleans. They got married down there. Have you ever been to a wedding in New Orleans?
oh, absolutely. I got married in New Orleans.
Got married in New Orleans. All right. So this is like a trip, gang. If you've never been to a New Orleans wedding, you got the whole wedding happens, right? And then after the wedding, you have a parade. And I'm like, this is a pisser, man. I like,
Yeah.
holy cow. So I don't drink alcohol anymore. So I'm sure by the time the parade started, I had like 19 Red Bulls in my body at that point, right? Explain some.
That's the way you should fuel yourself before you're going to walk through the streets of New Orleans, which are
I,
sort of like
I
walking
felt
through a
like,
minefield.
Ms. K, I felt like I needed wings. And I was told from the commercials that Red Bull gives me wings. So
I'm really happy that worked out for you.
I was pretty much flying through New Orleans. So that is a trip, man. It's the only time I've ever been to a New Orleans wedding. We have 4 kids, my wife and I, so we literally like flew down like Saturday morning, maybe late Friday night or something like that. But we were in and out in like 36 or like 42 hours, right? The back
Yep.
of Long Island. But it was like a whirlwind, and it was my cousin who's one of my closest friends. So it was all family, all guys that he went to school with, guys we grew up with. It was just really, really a good old time. But he loves that city. I haven't got back there enough, but I know with the music and the scene, there's so much going on in that place, right?
Between the music and the food, you're definitely going to get back here at some point soon.
100%, 100%. I gotta come back through and do that. And I'm fired up that you're here this morning because shout out to my friend Greg Levine over at McBride. which is where you work, McBride Consulting, and Business Development Group. We're going to get into your role and stuff like that. But I just was texting with Greg this morning. I said, hey, I saw our friend Linda Beagle-Schulman the other night, because Greg and Linda are very close. And Linda has a very important organization in memory of her son, Scott. So Greg, if it's not for you making connections, and everybody else that's in my network saying, hey, Tommy D, you need to feature this person on your show, or you need to get this person on your show. Well, I mean, I'm trying to do 5,000 episodes, and it's going to take the work I do with my network to do 5,000 episodes of this show. And ironically, wink, wink, everybody, we just finished a meeting yesterday. Going to do a couple TV shows on North Shore TV here on Long Island. One of them is going to be around mental health, and it's going to go right in line with my campaign of hashtag ending the stigma together. So look out for some news about that. And then the other is going to be kind of like, Long Island change makers, something to that effect, right? I'm going to get really important people who are doing great work. Some of them run or work in nonprofit organizations. Some of them are business people. We're still working out who it's going to be, but that's going to be a lot of fun. So I think, I've said this on the show before, that at the end of the Willy Wonka movie, I just told the story the other night. Charlie has the everlasting gobstopper, and he's told that he has to leave, and that's it. And they drank the fizzy lifting drinks, and now the top of the roof of that room has to be cleaned and sanitized. And Grandpa Joe's like, no big deal, Charlie. We got the everlasting gobstopper. We'll sell it to Slugworth. We'll make a couple bucks. It's all good. Young Charlie, the pure little boy that he is, comes over, puts the everlasting gobstopper on the desk, and Mr. Wonka goes, my boy, Charlie, you've won. And then they go up in the elevator.
Yeah.
Remember the scene? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he says to Charlie, Charlie, don't ever forget what happened to the little boy who got everything he ever wanted. And he says, what was that, Mr. Wonka? He said, he lived happily ever after. And I'm like, you know what, Kimberly? I'm almost there. I'm almost with Mr. Wonka in the elevator, living happily ever after, because I think I'm getting most of what I want in the world. And maybe that's a result that I try to help other people a lot. So I'm fired up that you're here. I'm excited. We got a lot to talk about. I usually start out with, hey, what's your story? What drew you to the work? What got you to the nonprofit sector? In your case, different story for sure. So I had the opportunity, I told you before we got started this morning, I was reading one of your articles. Why I could read your bio and all that stuff, and I usually do that when we come back from break, but why don't you really tell your story? It's your story, Kimberly Kaye. I want to hear from you. Please take it away.
Sure. So, I mean, I'd love to say, oh, here's the short version of the story, but as you've read in the past already, it's not really a short story. But the intro version of the story is that I took a very circuitous route into the nonprofit sector and into fundraising in general. I began in New York as a baby journalist right out of college. I went to college at Wagner College on Staten Island. Popped into Manhattan as soon as I graduated, and hit the ground running as a little baby entertainment reporter, and sort of rose through the ranks, working up to associate producer and then becoming creative director of a major editorial department. But my body started to behave very oddly during that. I think it's a shock to anybody who knows about journalism or comms work in general. That's pretty stressful. Long hours, late nights, a lot of events, a lot of talking to people, a lot of shaking hands, interacting with huge groups of people. And I started to get sick a lot. And I started to physically struggle in a way that just didn't make sense for somebody who was in their 20s. Jump ahead, and by my early 30s, I was in organ failure, just slowly declined, and was in this weird place that happens in American healthcare, where you're definitely really sick and sick enough that people are worried about it, but you're not so sick that there's any sort of safety net program, that there's anything that catches you, that you have the assistance that you need in a crisis. And so I quickly found myself in this sort of crisis situation where I really needed medical treatment, and I needed advanced diagnostics to figure out what was happening, but I couldn't afford it. My insurance was standing in the way of certain diagnostics and facilities. My bank account was the other obstacle. Journalists aren't known for being an extremely wealthy group of workers. So I didn't know what to do, and had to quickly learn a lot about fundraising and individual fundraising. As it turns out, you can learn a lot a lot of stuff really fast if you are motivated by the fear of death. It's a really solid motivator overall.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
probably top, 5 motivators, right? Like if
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
life or death situation, maybe I can't lay around and procrastinate on that one, right?
yeah, you're not. I think it's death, and then like a very unhappy boss. Like that's the only thing that's above that. With your home cell phone number, that might be it. But
Oh,
cutting ahead through a very long, years long process, I was able to, by tapping my network through the absolute tremendous generosity of people that I had met through my job in journalism, people who I had written stories for, people who I had supported their work. They became very interested in returning the favor, and they sort of helped push that fundraising, that plea for help. I need money so that I can pay out of pocket for medical care in a way that completely took my breath away. I had a standard issue. This was, I think it was like 2016 when this happened, but like your standard GoFundMe campaign,
mhm.
in addition to, your emails and your individual conversations and your sort of just grassroots effort to get funds together. But because of the incredible kindness of people and the relationships I cultivated over the years, that GoFundMe went viral. It connected me with an angel donor who had a connection at Cleveland Clinic, and made a couple of phone calls and made sure that I was receiving the absolute best level of care anybody from my tax bracket and from where I am in, literal blue collar Springsteen country, New Jersey, could access. And so I did get a diagnosis. I did get treated. I did get 2 years of physical therapy and support that I needed. And I was able to transition out of, I'm no longer in organ failure, thankfully,
Right.
and survived the experience. I still live as a disabled person with a diagnosis of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a genetic disorder, a connective tissue disorder that was considered rare at the time that I was diagnosed, but isn't actually rare. It was rare because there wasn't good diagnostic criteria for it. There wasn't a lot of research about it. As we know now, it's actually a lot more common than you think. So if you're thinking, oh, that's a rare thing and I won't have to memorize that weird word she just said, no, maybe keep it in the back of your mind. If someone that you love, particularly women, are struggling with a variety of health issues all at once, can't get a diagnosis, maybe look up what the criteria is for Ehlers-Danlos. Keep that in your mind. And so, yeah, I had to save my own life through fundraising. And through that, also got a lot of information about how healthcare systems work, nonprofits work, and how you connect the dots between all of those, and found myself being reached out to by other doctors, other patient advocates, and other patients saying, can you help me fundraise? Can you help our program fundraise? Can you help us get the funds to keep our department that works with patients like you open? And that opened the door to a career in grant writing and fundraising.
It's so, first of all, I have so much commentary on the healthcare system in this country, and I'm trying to hold back on it. Gang, if you're not, maybe you're familiar, Kimberly, there's a brother and sister team right now, Casey and Callie Means. I don't know if if you're aware of them, Kimberly, but you need to check into them. So she was, I'll Google it when we go to break, but let me make sure I got this right. Stanford MD, on the track, working her way up in her career, and realized that she was doing surgery on patients who weren't getting any better, and then there would be a subsequent surgery to resolve other issues, et cetera, et cetera. She's written a book, and her brother, Casey, is the doctor, Callie is the former lobbyist, and they are this like incredible team. And I watched an interview with them where, gang, I don't care if you like the interview or you don't like the interview, or watch this one. Tucker Carlson interviews the brother and sister, and just an incredible conversation around the same people, lobbyists and business people, who convinced us as a society that cigarettes were healthy or were not unhealthy for us, are the same people that bankrolled, big food, all right, big boxed food, big ultra processed food, right? And you Google Casey and Cali Means. I'll get you the name of the book. I think it's called Good Food. No, I think it's called Good Living. I'll get it for you in a second. Somebody's listening. It's like, Tommy, this is the title. Well, I can't hear you if you're saying it, so I'll have to get it myself. Um, and it's just, unfortunately, healthcare system is set up. It's a business, gang. I mean, it's a business. I own an employee benefits agency. We sell health insurance, and it's just so tough that the clients we go to see, the rates just continue to creep up, or maybe creep is the wrong word because they go faster than that. And it's like, but the challenges are people are unhealthy too. People
Mhm.
aren't taking the initiative to be healthy and do the right things. I'm not in your scenario, Kimberly. I'm speaking just just as the whole thing works. We got to take ownership of our own health care, right? And at the same time, we gotta realize that these are businesses. These people are trying to make money. It's not like you would think it's like a social service, like where they should be taking care of us. But a lot of times, I think the thing, maybe you're aware of this too, the everybody who's an MD in medical school, I think they get like less than 6 hours of nutritional training. And I know you have some, I saw some of your interest in like wellness and obviously with your journey and things. But it's just I'm riffing, I'm going all over the map right now, but it's just there's so much here that I think we need to address as a society. And I'll try to tackle some of it when we come back and then roll that into the fact that you became a fundraiser and a grant writer and a storyteller, which was probably not in the plan, right? You were good.
No, I didn't wake up as a little kid and go, you know what? I think I want to fundraise a couple $1 million for a hospital. That was not the plan.
No, and then I'm looking up Casey Means' book while we're talking. It wasn't the plan, and then it's like good energy, gang. Good energy, Casey Means. Um, it wasn't the plan, but it becomes the plan, right? It's like it becomes the opportunity. The fact that you were quote unquote successful in raising these funds. I mean, right? You were successful. You brought in the dollars you needed. I love how you talked about relationships, your network, the people you supported, the people wanted to support you. You had an angel, you said, like an
Yeah,
angel that
angel
had
donor.
right, an angel donor who what? Had connections because that's what it's all about. I've been informally mentoring a couple of young guys who just I know their parents, they reach out to me. My son is looking for a job. And I'm like, listen, Tommy, you know what I'm doing? I'm sending in resumes and nothing's happening. I go, because that's not it.
Mhm.
You're on the phone, we're on a Zoom right now because it ain't about that, man. Your
Right.
resume is going into a pile. Well, it's a virtual pile now, and some AI is looking at it and not knowing who you are, what you do. I said, but you need to know. I said, come, I want you to draw a Venn diagram. I want you to say what you like to do, what you're good at, all that stuff. Come to me with a list of companies, and then we'll work together, right? And we'll help.
Right.
That's networking, that's relationships, that's the whole thing. Without that, I probably would have never called myself the nonprofit sector connector. But without that, I don't even meet Kimberly Kaye and I don't meet Greg Levine and on and on and on. So we'll talk more about relationships. We're going to talk about how unintentionally you became this fundraising professional and how you, as the your title again, I was looking for it while you were I looked away and now I lost it. Grant writing and fundraising.
Director of Grants and Fundraising Strategy, which is
Director of grant and fundraising strategy from McBride and
strategizing money.
strategizing money, man. That's cool. I like that. I love it. All right, so we're gonna take a quick break. We come back. We're gonna dive into these people are reaching out to you, right? Back to the story. They're reaching out to you. They're saying, "Hey, Kimberly, can you help me? Can you help me do what you did?" And then we're gonna talk about that. The show is Philanthropy and Focus. I think we're right around 190 episodes on a plan of 5,000. So if you have nonprofits that you connect with and you want me to help them tell their story, reach out. Tommy D at philanthropyandfocus.com, PHOCUS. And don't forget, we are ending the stigma of mental health. We're going to have these conversations on a regular basis because guess what? I believe, with no clinical background, I believe that it is a spectrum. And I say it's a spectrum of mental health as it is on different abilities of learning. And we're going to talk more about that in the coming weeks and months and years. So Kimberly and Tommy D, right back.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
If you don't have your health, what do you really have? It's time to feel good in your body and shift from struggle to ease. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Tripp, your host of Nourish the Soul, where we explore the sacred wisdom of your body while you sit back, relax, and go on a journey of self-discovery. Join me every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to awaken your heart, transform your well-being, and unlock a deeper understanding of yourself.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Back. We are back. So it's funny how life happens. I'm in a conversation with my very good friend Brendan Levy, who I call Uncle Brendan. I was with him on a call, Queens Chamber VP of Business Development over at Queens Chamber of Commerce, and we wrote that theme song together, Kimberly. Nonprofits need connections. We started this show January 8th of 2021 after talking about it for like 2 years. So been around. Love the song, but I'm thinking it needs like a reggae vibe or something like that. So he and I, we're working it out, gang. We're gonna launch something new. We're gonna do a new song. It'll be the same theme, but we're gonna change some things on it. Actually, with the new shows, maybe I gotta have Brendan write some songs for that too. All right. Mick Collins, Mick always used to be like my guy checking in and let me know things. So Mick Collins says, "Good energy, the surprising connection between metabolism and limitless health" by Casey Means and Callie Means. Gang, it's a really cool story. You got to check it out. And the interview was really special. And, it's just, there's so much out there that we live in a capitalist society, we know that. And I think we'd be hoodwinked to think that in a society like that, businesses are there to do what? Make money. They got to answer to Wall Street every 90 days if they're publicly traded companies, gang. There's a lot. Let's think about what's going on. All right. So, Kimberly, folks start to reach out to you saying, "I saw what you did." And first of all, let me stop. Congratulations on your health. Congratulations. I mean, really, I think it's as a person, I'm trying to be the host and stay on topic, but as a person, I just want to say you saved your own life with the support of other people, right? I mean, is that really what it is?
Thank you. I mean, I do feel like most of the credit is due to other people, but it is hard work. You have to get engaged. You have to not succumb to despair. You have to pull yourself out of the hole, which isn't to say that I wasn't deep in the hole and deep in the depression. There was a point when I was in the hospital where I turned to my partner and just said, "I'm done. Let me go. I don't want to do this anymore. It's too hard."
Yeah.
And I had that genuine, dark night of the soul that people talk about, that you read about in every, transformational hero's journey, in quotes,
Yeah.
where I said, I'm done. I'm not going to try anymore. And then I woke up, 3 days later and was like, well, I'm still alive. And this still is the worst.
Right.
So I guess I should probably try and do something. And so I feel like there's some effort and credit to the individual, but again, there's no saving your own life if you don't have resources. You can't. You have to access people who have the knowledge, the information, and also the wisdom to sit down and help you organize it. And that's a thing I couldn't have done by myself. I needed other patients. I needed patient advocates. I needed smart doctors who are driven by outcomes rather than profits, or rather than reporting to the bean counters at their particular facility, to say, "Hey, here's what I think you should do. Hey, here's what makes the most sense. Here's statistically what you're actually looking at. Think twice about this treatment." You can't do that unless you have access to people who are willing to have real conversations with you about your outcomes.
Yeah, and I want to. There's something I want to read from your article that I found on the Medium. It says, positive health outcomes are possible even in very complex cases when, and then you have these 5 bullet points. When you surround patients with compassionate, trauma literate community, when you make sure patients have the money to afford clean, nourishing food, or simply give them clean, nourishing food. When you present people with the opportunity to heal their trauma instead of medicating it away, depression, anxiety, ADHD, terror, anger, when you actually help them address it. Gang, I will tell you this because I'm all about ending the stigma, right? 14 years sober, I see a therapist twice a week. And I tell you that not so you're in my personal life. I tell you that because that's real and that's normal. And that's what we're supposed to do is share these things so everybody knows. The fourth point was we believe patients instead of dismissing their valid concerns. When we factor quality of life into treatment protocols, if the cure is worse than the illness, is it a cure? And when we abandon the childish fantasies about a clean, pretty healing process, right? I guess when we get real, right? When we realize that this is real stuff. There's something that I'd like you to just address and comment on, if you don't mind, is like access. I'm hearing, you haven't said the word directly, but in your article I read here and in what I'm taking from what you're saying, do you believe that because of maybe who you are and how you appear to the world, maybe you had better access than somebody and better support than maybe somebody else would have had?
Yeah, absolutely. Without question. I've spoken about this at other times as well. I belong to a patient community that's pretty intimate as a result of, it's a smaller population. You get to know each other, you get to know stories. And there's no question that as a result of my age, I was younger, had just been married. I had a really sweet wedding photos on my GoFundMe. I'm fortunate that I was connected to a group of people that you only have access to if you get a college education and if you get into the workforce and if you start to meet people who have enough money who they can be your angel donor. Like, that's some of it's work, but some of it's luck. And if you can't afford to go to college, if you are the first person from your family to be able to get higher education, or there's nobody in your family who's modeled that sort of opportunity, like, there's layers. And so I absolutely want to be clear that access is everything. Access is everything in recovering from any type of illness. Access is also a huge part of how you're going to fundraise for your organizations, how you're going to help the people in your service community. My being a younger, Caucasian, blue-eyed, at the time blonde-haired person with her pretty wedding photos, my GoFundMe got traction that some of the older, some of the, we don't have this sort of nice magazine ready, kind of glossy. There's a number of people in my patient community who are transgender. And so their GoFundMes, their campaigns didn't take off the same way because they didn't check the boxes of this kind of like, here's what we like to see. We like to see this neat, pretty picture that we can project onto. Very often people are looking to see themselves in the stories. And if they don't see themselves when they look at your story, they'll go right by it. But if they think that could be my daughter, that could be my son, that could be my wife, all of a sudden they're very motivated because they have a direct connection with it. And that is not something that happened for some of the patients who did not check the boxes that I did.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out those social concerns all the time, and that's something I always like to address. So thank you for doing that, and that's a whole episode right there. I was talking.
Yeah, for sure.
That sort of stuff. So we're gonna go to break in a second, but because it moves fast on the show here, people sometimes say, "Wait, an hour?" And I go, "I'm telling you, man, you're not gonna believe it. It's gonna go fast." So what I really want to understand, these folks come to you, and before now you're going to be this consultant person, right? Like that, now you're like the guru, man, right? They're coming.
Like most people in consulting, you don't wake up as a little kid and go, when I grow up, I want to be a consultant. Things happen to you.
Right.
And as a result of things happening to you, you develop a body of expertise and you develop outcomes. And then based on what happens there, people come to you and go, I need you to replicate that. I need you to help me with that. I have the same problem. I need a similar solution or at least a similar outcome. Can you help me do that? And so it started very gradually. In the beginning, I was just helping other patients write grants that were, or, applications for assistance so that they were going to be able to access, whether it was medications, get into certain programs. If they were paying out of pocket for care, this was going to cover things like supplemental rent, or this was going to cover their groceries. There are a lot of people who really struggle to fill out an application. There are people who are tremendously gifted with numbers who struggle with words. And so being able to help them put their stories into words in a concise, organized fashion that somebody reading it goes, oh, I understand what's happening here. Here's why it's important. Here's why I can trust this person to give them money. Obviously, that transferred very well into writing grants at a higher level, because that's what you're doing when you submit, whether you are submitting to try and help a patient get access to medication that is way too expensive for them every month, or whether you're trying to help a hospital secure the millions that they need to expand, say, a NICU, or an infant mother care program. Your assignment is, what's the story? Why should I trust you? And how are we going to measure whether this money was well spent? And that's typically the foundation of a strong grant application that matters is, why do I care? Why should I trust you? And how are you going to use this money?
Why do I care? Why should I trust you? How are you going to use this money, right? And then I guess that measurement is the KPIs, the metrics. Like, what? Okay, now
absolutely, your performance metrics are all the other stuff, and that's those are for your your municipal grants, your federal grants, your state grants, and your 6 figures and above private foundation grants. They want to see measurements. They want to say, okay, we said we're going to trust you. Now prove to us that we should trust you so that we renew.
Yeah, right.
So that we renew this grant.
Right, you're gonna have to show me the performance. What did you do? All right, let's take a quick. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll dive into when did you come to McBride? Were you doing this outside of McBride beforehand? Let's get into that, and then I want to kind of talk about some storytelling stories. So like some of the stuff you've done, some of the work you're involved with, and we always get to how can we help? How can we make additional connections for you and for McBride and the whole thing? So we'll get into that. All right, let's take a quick break. Philanthropy in Focus. Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Hi, I'm Linda Marcanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
I just thought of, probably thought of 19 things while we were at a break, but I just thought of one thing specifically. I was like, oh, Zydeco. That's like New Orleans music. Maybe we should have like a Zydeco version of the Tommy Need theme song, Kimberly.
Yeah, I like it. A little bit of accordion in the morning really gets people motivated, you know?
Man, let's get it going. Let's go, man. Let's go. All right, so my guest is Kimberly Kaye, Director of Grants and Fundraising Strategy at McBride, New York. She's a recovering journalist, longtime research professional, and lifelong patient advocate. Her transition into nonprofit work and fundraising was a fluke of genetics, like we've heard about so far, beginning when she was flattened by organ failure caused by the genetic disorder Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. After health insurance refused to cover her life-saving care, she threw herself headlong into fundraising and grant writing to save her own life. And now, with her role as director of grants and fundraising strategy, she's helping other organizations do that, to get out there, to do the storytelling. I like storytelling. I tell you the truth, though. I type with 2 fingers. So it's not like I'm good with like video. I need like a ghostwriter to tell my stories, because I just want to.
Yeah, we got voice to text apps for that now too. You're golden, baby. This is your
100%.
time.
I'm telling you, because I could just go for days about talking, but type and forget about it, man. So let's talk storytelling. Tell me about like how were you when it started out, and did you get clients who said, because I wrote something while you were talking before. You said you have a body of expertise. I hear that as, well, that equates value. That means someone will give you remuneration for your body of expertise, right? So what is that? Yeah.
So, look, coming from a journalism background was really helpful in my particular case. Your job is to collect data, collect information, find your narrative through line, build that out, and make sure that the story is compelling enough as you tell it, as you insert your data, to prove it that people don't zone out, so that you can have the best data, the best resources, the best quotes, the best cited sources. But if you're not engaging the person reading, whether it's a reader who picked up your newspaper, or whether it's a foundation or agency adjudicator of your grant application, if you can't keep their attention, you can't keep them engaged, you don't execute your actual goal. So finding stories, finding individual stories, and then making sure that you're making those stories accessible to people who don't have that lived experience, who perhaps aren't familiar with that type of experience. That's the name of the game. For a patient, it's really clearly illustrating not just, oh, I'm so sick, but here are the things around my life that make me a good candidate for treatment, for funding, for working with your facility. Here's why I'm going to throw myself into this program wholeheartedly. You're not just going to give me money and I'm going to disappear. You're not going to help me out and I'm going to squander it by, say, cheap examples like, oh, I'm partying on the weekends, but then I'm coming to treatment, so picking out those stories and helping patients sort of pull out, like, hey, it's so overwhelming when you have a need, whether you're an organization or you're an individual, when you have a profound need, for organizations, especially like the ones that I work with now, very often, if you don't get funding, your constituents aren't going to be served. Your program's going to shut down. All of these people who work together to get you as far as you were are going to bail. So trying to pull out the panic and the anxiety in somebody's story, get down to the nuts and bolts of it, and then bring the pieces of it that are universally sort of understandable. The average person might not know what it's like to be critically ill with organ failure, and they might not know how truly frighteningly expensive that is. So just sort of laying that out in clear, plain language is the assignment when you're, say, working with patients. When you're working with an organization, the mission statement's incredible. I'm so happy to see so many organizations being really thoughtful about their mission statements. But you have to be more than just a mission statement. You have to be a mission statement in action, which means actual case studies from how your organization does their work that shows the outcome that you promised in your mission statement you were going to achieve. And if, as so many nonprofits and organizations find as they go through this, your mission statement says one thing, and then the devil's in the details. Again, life happens. You say, I'm going to do this. You get the program going, you get it funded, it starts to work. But then because humans are really variable and life is really variable and legislation is even more variable, it changes every couple of years depending on who's in charge. All of a sudden you might find, hey, we have to shift the focus of this program. We have to shift the focus of the mission of this organization. And if your storytelling about why that's happening or how that happened isn't cohesive and clear, it starts to on paper look like chaos. And that's really hard to fund. It's hard to get whether it's a federal agency or a private foundation, to look at something and go, it feels like these guys are kind of all over the place. I like what they're about, but their outcome, like they had this hinky thing that happened 3 years in, and I don't really understand how things are now. I'm putting their application to the side and moving to the next one that's really clear. So narrative storytelling, the type that you learn, say, in journalism or that type of background, can be really useful in this sector, because you have to not just lay out data, lay out outcomes, lay out your KPIs or how did this happen, but put all of the pieces together in a way that makes people read the entire application and then go, oh, hey, when adversity presents itself to this organization or this individual, they roll with it. And here's an example of them being resilient and making changes. And now I feel like I can trust them with this money or this endowment or fill in the blank. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense to me. I have like a bunch of questions, and I'm like saying, oh my God, Kimberly Kaye needs to connect with us at the Imagine Awards. And so great and value add to the Imagine Awards. We'll take that offline because I think you'd be such an important add. My friend Ken Serini is the founder of the Imagine Awards, Serini and Associates accounting firm out here on Long Island. And I mentioned at the front of the show the New York City Imagine Awards, but the applications for the Long Island Imagine Awards are out right now. And I'm just listening to how you're talking about storytelling, because, you mentioned narrative storytelling, and I was hearing in my mind, like, the art and science of what you do, because certainly there's the science of this, but you're also trying to keep people's attention, keep them engaged, right? So they're paying attention and reading the whole thing, but it can't be just, storytelling. It has to be like, what is what are we doing here? And, with all the nonprofits I have, the thing that most nonprofits say to me all the time after they say they need money, this is basically the same thing. They say, do you know any grant writers?
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if they're a $50,000 organization or a 30 or $40 million. It's always like, do you know any grant writers, Tommy D? And it's just like, because even you have a journalist background, you said. So I'm sitting here going, like, I like to tell stories. I'm a storyteller. Sometimes I'm inside of one story and it ends up into 3 stories and I have to fold it back together, and that goes with the ADHD. So my people, if you hear me, but it's that sort of storytelling that I think is missing in a lot of organizations. And they say,
yeah,
I got to fill out this grant application. I don't know how does an organization engage with you and McBride? Like, is there certain, like, what is the profile of who could you work with or who you look to work with, that sort of thing?
That's a great question. I'm really happy to say that the answer is everybody. McBride is an all-purpose consulting and business solutions firm. So whether you're, an individual person with a problem, a corporation, or a nonprofit, there's an expert at a consulting firm like McBride that has an answer for you, that has a body of expertise. But with regard to grant writing in particular, McBride works with, I work with the Scott J. Beagle Memorial Fund, and that's a smaller, been in operation for about 5 years, founded in 2018, began with just 2 people under the worst of circumstances, the aftermath of Scott J. Beagle's killing at the Parkland shootings, and made the most of a horrendous situation to do incredible good on the local and larger level for gun violence and kids who are impacted by gun violence. That's an example of a smaller, you're talking about a volunteer staff, just an executive director, their partner, and their board trying to make things go for 5 years. We're able to work with them. We've secured grant wins for them. We've connected them with government funding. We've been able to expand their programming a bit as a result of accessing larger funds. That's one example. And then all the way on the other end of the spectrum are, multi-million-dollar healthcare systems that, for, very smart legal reasons I'm not going to name, but you're talking about multiple facilities, operating budgets well in excess of 6-figure millions, and programs that service tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, honestly, of patients across an entire region. And so, you have to scale your storytelling. You have to be thoughtful about how you build your grant writing teams based on the size of your organization. But a good professional grant writer and fundraising strategizer, there are some that specialize in, major gifts, and that's their focus. But generally speaking, we're useful to all organizations, because the foundation of what you do is the same. You tell good stories, you collect good data, you make sure you're reading the fine print. One of the benefits of hiring a grant writer is that they're going to go through and read all 90 pages of that federal NOFO, your notice of funding opportunity, that your program directors, your program managers, your executive directors, they do not have time to do this. So outsourcing help and support from a firm like McBride, from grant writers that work as outside grant writers, can be useful, because we're there to relieve the pressure on an already overburdened nonprofit staff that has too much. Throwing a grant application or research into the mix is a crisis event. They have too much to do already.
Right. So critically, so I want to underscore a couple pieces. First of all, I love everything you're saying. What I want to pull out from it, if I could, is Scott J. Beagle Memorial Fund. You know, my friend Linda Beagle Schulman, I mentioned seeing her the other night. Unfortunately, her partner Michael passed away, so my condolences to the family. I love Michael. What a great man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they are a, relatively speaking, small organization, right? So if you are a small organization and you don't have a specialist in-house, many of us talk about outsourcing, you know, it's a great opportunity to outsource, because, you know, not to think, oh, well, that's just for the big guys or gals. It's not. It's for it's for everyone. So that's great to know that McBride can be a solution there. And then it just, for me, again, it goes to research, right? It's a lot to do the research. And I've talked to friends who are funders. Shout out to my friend Maheen Kaleem from Grant Makers for Girls of Color. They do incredible work. And it's about, like, you gotta know who the funder is. You got, you know, who they are as an organization, who the people are, who they're your partners, right? You're asking them to fund what you're doing. So, you know, do your research, do your homework. Before we take a quick break, Kimberly, tell me about that research and homework, if you could.
Sure. Research and homework, you know, look, like you're saying, when you reach out to any organization, whether you're talking a smaller funder for, say, gifts of $5,000 or grants of $5,000 or less, or whether you're reaching out to a state or federal agency that's going to be giving you millions, what you're doing is asking to enter into a serious relationship with them. You're not saying, let's go on a date. You're saying, hey, I want to be in a serious relationship for bare minimum a year with you. And ideally, that's going to turn into years. So you need to come correct to that date. The date where you're going to ask, would you like to be my girlfriend or my boyfriend?
Like, would you wear my jacket? Like, would you wear my pin?
If you want to get pinned, you need to know their name. You need to know their mom's middle name. You need to know what their life goals are. You need to know if you're the right type of partners to be together. Do you have shared goals? Like, so if you're going to enter into a financial marriage, essentially, with an organization, make sure you know everything about them. But in addition to knowing everything about them, make sure you know everything about your service community that is of value to them.
Right.
Not just
alignment. Like, how does it hook up? Like, I got $100 million over here, right? And I want to fund programs that serve, for instance, this very small community, right? And then you're the organization going, oh, I serve that community, and here's how I serve that community. So let me show you, let me walk you down the road and show you how what you're trying to do with your $100 million I am doing, and let's align, right? Like, that's seems kind of obvious, but in practice, Mom, maybe it's not. Maybe it's a situation of timing, like you said.
It's actually just really easy to get lost in the details, because you have all of your performance metrics. You have all of your statistical data that you've collected on your service community. You have your history of financials. You're busy listing all that. Sometimes it's easy for, hey, here's how what you're doing, what I'm doing are in perfect alignment. That gets lost. And it often gets lost when people who have too many assignments, too many jobs, and too many projects get overwhelmed and are just sort of last minute. You know, some grant applications, they give you 3 weeks from the time that they announce it to the time you can submit. If you are an overburdened professional or a volunteer, you don't have time to put that together. But an outside grant professional whose only focus is, how do I sell your business? It's laser focus on how do I make sure people understand what you're doing. They can focus on telling that story without getting lost in the minutia.
Love it. I love it, because executive leaders and nonprofits and staffers are in other things. They're running programs, right? They're leading the organization. They're running development. They're doing other things. So all of a sudden, I got to do this grant. It's like, well, yeah, and I have to do this business. We're running a business here, right? So just more ways and reasons to consider what I'll use the word outsourcing or hiring a consultancy to do this type of work. So I'm digging this episode, but I mean, I'm a big fan of this show. It's like I tune in every week. In fact, well, while I'm here, but that's why I'm so. But I'm digging this because we're dropping knowledge on people, we're really bringing value. We're teaching them stuff, and I'd love to maybe you and I do like a webinar one day. We'll do some cool stuff
That'd be
around
great.
and connecting you some more people. All right, we'll take a quick break. Then when we come back, it's going to be like Kimberly, who can we connect you with, like different relationships, different organizations, stuff like that, because um like anything else, I'm sure your organization has its eye on maybe specific parts of the nonprofit sector that it wants to serve, or specific interests, or different things like that, causes that are connected to what you guys see, I don't know how you guys see the world. All right, we'll be right back. It's this show should be 3 hours long. This should be like Rogan, but I don't know. I don't know if anybody listened for 3 hours and me going like this with people. We'll be right back.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy and Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
All right, Kimberly, Kaye, I told you I did some research before the show, and it's funny how I looked through the bio that you and your team had sent over, and I just read it again, and how I didn't bring this up at all because I missed it, right? So first of all, that song, Nonprofits Need Connections, Move in Right Directions, so cut through all the static, join Tommy in his attic. If that was sung by, I don't know, the lead singer of Loose Cattle, what do you think? Could you rock with that? Like, would it be a different vibe? Like, what would that be
It'd
like?
be a very different vibe because Loose Cattle is a band known for its close harmonies. Close harmonies being like your Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young kind of like stacked vocals. So it would have 3 different voices on it. Would be very compelling. It would be like a beautiful choir of angels singing about your attic. Yeah.
All right, so we got to talk about that. We don't have time for it now, but it's like I just pulled up the website while we're talking to. Is the band performing right now? Like, you guys working together? You doing stuff or what?
My band Loose Cattle, our record is actually out today on Single Lock Records, and we have a record release show at Joe's Pub in New York on November 18th. So New York area folks, you should come out. It's going to be kind of great. The whole band's coming up from New Orleans.
So if I was just like, hypothetically, like if I'm at Joe's and I'm there, could we sing Nonprofits Need Connections with that blended melody thing you said like that?
I feel like that would be an easy thing for us to record backstage.
Dude, oh my God. All right, the gang, go to loosecattleband.com. Totally was unplanned, but I just caught it in the bio while we were at the last break. Loosecattleband.com. Joe's Pub in Manhattan.
Joe's Pub, which is on the lower Manhattan area, not quite Lower East Side, but it's an incredible venue attached to the Public Theater.
Love it. All right, I'm sharing the website so folks can check it out. So when I was going to say, like, who do you want to meet? Who do you want to connect with? Well, folks, let's hang out on November 18th, folks. Come out with me. We'll go out. We'll do like a Tommy D road show into New York City. I'm Mick Collins. I know you're checking in, Mick, down there in Gaithersburg, Maryland. Mick, join me up here. Sorry about your Yankees. All right, let's go Mets. I couldn't listen. I have not given any of my Yankees friends a hard time because my Mets lost a week and a half ago. But God, that was some showing. Let's go Dodgers. Anyway, so Kimberly, what who do you want to meet? Like, who can I connect you with? Let's talk about that. Like, as you grow.
Sure. So look, an area that I'm really passionate about and always looking to connect is nonprofits in particular that look at their boards, look at their staff and go, oh my God, these people are incredible. And I'm so proud of our team, but we don't actually have a lot of members of our service community involved in our day-to-day operations and our decision-making. I think it's really important. And as a grant professional, I'm seeing that this is really, really crucial in your actual grant applications. Funding agencies and private foundations are very interested in seeing organizations as they grow. Make sure that their service community is really well represented, that it's not just a group of people with money in a room going, I have all of the solutions, that they go, I have the money and I have some solutions. And now you, people, boots on the ground, whether it's the patients, whether it's the kids who are impacted by gun violence, whether it's the municipality that you say you're going to be fixing their pipes. What are the day-to-day areas that those people need help? So, and just notes for people who don't have a lot of grant application experience themselves, organizations on their applications are asking to see how many people from your service community are you actually including now? They want to see that. So I'm very interested in helping organizations strategize by bringing more people that they serve into their projects. And McBride in general is about building stronger communities, solutions for that. So disaster prep and relief, funding for water and air quality, funding for arts and culture projects that a large audience in your community is going to be able to see, healthcare access, all of those things that build stronger communities. That's an area that McBride's very strong and wants to assist more people.
I love it. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I am going to talk to you offline about the Imagine Awards. I think you'd be an incredible asset, at least in some way, shape, or form, being connected.
I'd love to.
You know, maybe it's a judge, maybe it's a committee member like me. We'll talk about it offline. I want to do something else. I'm thinking just what you talked about. Shout out to Harmony Healthcare, my friend Amy Fleischer and the CEO, David Nimeroff, and the team over there. They had a really cool event up here on the North Shore of Long Island. I wear Hawaiian shirts. It was on the beach. It was perfect. It was the only gala that I was supposed to wear flip-flops for. The other 19 I went to, I wore flip-flops anyway. So, but that organization, on their board, they representative of the communities that they serve as a federally qualified health center. I have Steve Fry is going to come on the network right after me, so I got to hurry up and bring the show to a close. Kimberly, Kaye, I'm so glad Greg introduced us. I'm fired up. I'm not kidding. You're going to see me in a Hawaiian shirt and flip-flops at Joe's Pub. If it's not too chilly, November 18th, I'll have to wear it. If it's too chilly, I'll wear shoes. I hate wearing shoes. I hate wearing shoes.
Can't wait to see you, Tommy.
I'm excited, man. This was fun. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for sending out love, and appreciate you, and make it a great weekend. All right. I'll talk to you all soon.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. See you guys next week. Bye.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his act.